before, insomuch as the Board of Irresponsible People has concluded that I've stolen 13% of all of my material over the years from them. Our number one story tonight, John Cleese, Terry Gilliam, and Terry Jones join me to celebrate the 40th anniversary, which will include a documentary, Monty Python, Almost the Truth, The Lawyer's Cut, 6 episodes beginning Sunday on the Independent Film Channel, IFC. Most instructive for the devotees, the doubt of 40 Octobers ago, the doubt that this was all funny, the doubt coming from the performers.
I still remember as Gray and Terry Jones did that very first of all our sketches, which was about the sheep who could fly.
Good afternoon. Afternoon. Lovely day, isn't it?
And I remember Michael and I had a conversation in the dressing room just beforehand, and said, and I said to him, "Do you realize, Michael, we could be the first people in history to do a 30-minute comedy show to complete silence?" And he said to me, "I was having the same thought."
As promised, and already having started the interview without me, in order, Terry Jones, John Cleese, and Terry Gilliam, 3/5 of the surviving membership of Monty Python's Flying Circus. Well, it's beyond an honor for me, gentlemen.
Of course it is.
Yes, well, good. I'm glad you were... Why a documentary, another documentary? This is, what, the 117th, rather than just a documentary on all the previous documentaries?
I'll tell you the real reason, because his son was one of the producers, and we couldn't bear to say no.
No, it was a bit of arm twisting. I had to persuade... I mean, actually, no, I didn't want to do a documentary. Nobody wanted to do a documentary, but my son Bill said, "Oh, come on, Dad, we've got to do a documentary."
If anybody would have the right, I suppose, to push you into it, correct?
I suppose so. And actually, what they've done is a fantastic... It's like, it's a totally different take on the whole thing, and it's like, it's a brilliant piece.
It's the first time we've gotten paid for talking about ourselves.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, that helps at all.
But when somebody said, "Do Python Speaks," which was, all the interview, I thought, oh, not again. Actually, when it came out, I started to read it. I thought, this is really quite good. I enjoyed reading it because I learned a lot of stuff, because these people have such terrible memory. And hearing their versions of events is hilarious.
Oh, John, you dog.
I only have to land the face.
I was reading about this. It's been a bowl of cherries for 40 years, has it not?
No, it does. Like, John in the documentary says that when he was doing Lancelot and the Concorde in the Holy Grail, that that Terry and I suddenly said, after the best performance, we said, there was not enough smoke. And of course he was totally wrong. What happened was the DP said there's too much smoke, and so that's why we had to do it again, and we had to reshoot it. And
you had to get the smoke right.
No. Good comedy depends on smoke, John. Come on, smoke and mirrors. That's what it's about.
If they couldn't see you, it wasn't much of a shot.
Exactly.
They're directors.
Yes.
And all they wanted is make these.
John still doesn't.
We tried to dignify him, give him some sense of gravitas.
So it's 6 hours of this?
This juvenile squad.
One thing I don't understand is there was a marvelous new documentary using original source material on the Kennedy assassination by the History Channel. It's spectacular. It's 2 shows.
Yeah.
It takes 2 shows to go through the entirety of the Kennedy assassination. You guys need 6 hours to go through the history? I'm the biggest fan you've ever had, and it's 6 hours of this? Am I being paid to watch this?
You just noticed the world has gone mad, Keith. This is very perceptive.
But it's wonderful to hear us all having this dialogue completely separate from each other. It's much better than when we talk to each other in the flesh.
No, I disagree. When there's cameras on, I disagree, because obviously it's much tighter and the production is much better. But I have to ask at least one serious question about 40 years of this. If you had doubts, and as expressed in the clip that we played from your concerns about the first recording, why, not specifically did all of it work, why did it work here? It certainly isn't timeless. The TV show was not timeless, and there were political references. Half the people who saw it didn't get an Edward Heath joke in 1974, let alone now. Why does it still hold up, Terry?
Well, it's a mystery.
Well, I think, yes, it's a mystery. I think absolutely.
All right, well, that's it. We'll move on to the next
So the token American was necessary to translate the work to this great nation of mine formerly.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things we did. I think some of it was genuinely original, and I think that we somehow seemed to write sort of archetypes that people recognized in different cultures and said, we have funny people like that in our culture too.
But also I think that we were only writing for ourselves.
Yes.
And that we were just making what ourselves laugh. And that got under the net. And fortunately in America, there's a small, it's always a small percentage of people who find it funny. But in America, it's a huge amount of people.
Right. Numerically, but you raise a great point, because my other comedy heroes, Bob Elliott and Ray Goulding, Bob and Ray, the American group, Chris Elliott was Bob Elliott's son, and he has a granddaughter on Saturday Night Live now. It's a family, essentially, of traditional comedians here. They said, Bob told me once, that the whole point of their comedy team was to be on the radio live every day for 3 or 4 hours and try to make the other one laugh uncontrollably on the air. So much of this is just sort of the side effect. The show is a side effect from a desperate attempt to set each other off in some way. A little bit has been demonstrated here tonight with you two gentlemen.
Yeah.
Is that it? It's private, just put on stage?
You won't believe this, but my recollection, I have to check now because I'm much too old to know really what I'm talking about, but my recollection is we did not have any idea what the viewing figure was.
No. But there was no interest. There was also no managers, no agents, no executives.
Nobody
guiding us.
It was only by show 4 or 5 that we got any feedback, and somebody said there's a lot of letters coming into the BBC from school children, and that was the first feedback we'd had. Otherwise we'd been just doing it in a vacuum.
Because we made 4 shows before anything was transmitted.
You know what's interesting right now in America? Every time I come here and talk to people who say their children, their son or daughter have just discovered Python, the magic age seems to be 11. And I don't understand this. Why at 11, bright kids suddenly... there's an epiphany. They suddenly see this world that whatever it is we created, and it communicates to them, and they think this is the smartest, funniest stuff.
And also, formerly as an 11-year-old, although I was introduced to Python at about 15, the idea was always, from our perspective, I think, was that you represented to kids a realization that some adults recognized how dumb the other adults were, and that it was a crazy world. There was nobody to rely upon. You better figure it out fast because you're going to go into this.
Once said that after they watched Monty Python, they were unable to watch the news.
Well, now, that begs the question. I've mentioned this many times. I found this last year doing the primaries, co-anchoring the primary coverage one night, that we'd gotten into the exact cadence of your election night sketch from 1970, with phones ringing and people yelling at each other and pointless observations and guys waving to their mom and all the rest of that. And I just thought, no, this must be a fairly strange sign of influence from the group through all these years. But there must have been something even weirder than that. I mean, where else did you resonate that sort of may have horrified you or worried you? Anything?
Difficult question. I don't quite understand it.
All right, but I gave it to John in advance. Remember, we talked about this before the show.
I forgot.
It was an hour and a half ago. Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Yes, he's quite right. You just could have phrased it. I know.
That's countdown for this. I'm sorry.
Maggie Thatcher's foreign policy advisor very well. He's a friend, and I do know that at one point Maggie Thatcher had a speech to make at the Conservative Party conference, and she wanted to say that the third party, the Liberal Democrats, were dead.
Right.
So they rewrote for her the Dead Parrot sketch. And of course she didn't think it was a slightly bit funny. She didn't even kind of realize it was comedy material. It could have been Mongolian to her. And then they had to teach her how to say, how to stress things and how the cadences and where to take the pause. And they really coached her, Brick. And of course, when she did it, it was absolutely terrible, because when you have someone with no sense of humor at all, they just can't do it. So it did not register very well.
We did think about suing her for breaching material. Yes, breach of copyright.
And then we said to her, we figured that she was simply tired and shagged out following a prolonged squawk.
Well, and she got reelected despite or because of using the material?
Despite it, I think, yeah.
Well, that's your cross to bear then,
comedy doesn't work, satire doesn't work. They feed off it. They love it. The politicians love it. But I think what you do, Keith, is actually hits, really. We like to say. All fans.
Gentlemen, you honor me by saying that, and all I can say is it's partially at least all your fault. John Cleese, Terry Jones, Terry Gilliam, the documentary series premieres on IFC at 9 o'clock on Sunday night. Congratulations, and enjoy the big reunion tomorrow where you get a British award in an American theater, which tells us everything that's wrong. Congratulations on the Nobel Prize. Totally deserving. I appreciate you coming in.
He's much thinner when I watch him on YouTube.
Yeah, I know.
That's countdown for this, the 2,358th day since the previous president declared mission accomplished in Iraq. I used to be Keith Olbermann. Good night, and good luck.